that's even more realistic, but okay.
There's no requirement of security.
Sorry?
There's no requirement of security.
Okay, that's a different perspective altogether. Coming from a CISO. Okay.
Even the product development never come to CISO. Give me security requirement.
No, I understand your pain, man. You know, the position which you work, it's the most complex job there. It's just that, you know, the hard part of it doesn't get so visible. But I understand your pains, right? So here's the thing, right? I guess it relates to what even I have seen on the field is, it's during testing, typically, you know. Releases, of course, I've seen even those cases just before release. You know, so there was this example where the customer, like literally, you know, stood up this implementation partner, you know, because there was a delay, right? So they got delayed by 2 months, right? And then when they were about to go live and everyone was happy, they did a security assessment. I mean, the terms, you know, a security testing. And then there was like around 70 critical tier, you know, level 1 security defects reported. And it was a nightmare. They actually lost that account. I mean, this has happened, you know, and because, you know, the developers were not ready. No one has planned it, right? And it really led to actually the CIO leaving the job after 6 months. So these things happen, you know, because there's a lot riding on the business side, and if security is not aligned to it, it will never succeed. So this has happened, right? So quick thing, I guess most of us understand here, you know, what are the costs, you know, typically if the more delay you do in terms of, in your SDLC process, right, in terms of fixing it, the more costlier it becomes. So these are quick summary of, you know, what are the, you know, the costs associated to that. You know, same point, but from a different one. The key object and the key thing is to understand the more later you fix it, the more costlier it will be. The earlier you do it, you know, the better it is, right? So it's again the same thing, right? In terms of the cost going up, and the most of the defects are actually discovered, ideally should be discovered as it's shown in green. But what happens is typically what happens in orange color, right? In a real life scenario. And what should be your typical SDLCs? It should start typically from, you know, your requirement stage. This is the ideal profile. But what happens is it starts like this. You know, your SDLC. One more thing, right? So typically when application security is considered, right, it is always given within the purview of your security team, right? What I am proposing to you, or take this thought that you need to have an extended security team. And how can that happen? When your QA team and your development team gets onboarded, right? So when developers do that development, they ensure that security is obvious, right? Similarly, when your QA team is testing it, they ensure that they do it. They don't wait for the security team to take care of that. So you need to have that culture throughout. I thought this people typically talk in terms of people, process, technology. I thought, you know, root causes across these different layers. From a people perspective, people are just not trained. At times, you know, this may come as a surprise, but potentially, you know, 60% of the developers don't even know OAPs. This is my assessment, you know, there's no proof to it, but this is what I've seen in the field. They just don't know how to OAP. The second one is, even if they know, they don't know how to go ahead and implement it. That's the biggest problem, right? So I guess only 10% of the developers would really know how to go about doing that, right? Processes, there's no secure SDLC processes. It's all in the mercy of, you know, when it comes, it comes. I will, you know, whenever testing is done, suddenly level security is important. They have to be compliant, other things. And, you know, when security gets implemented, right? Technology, of course, there's so much happening on the cloud, mobile, IoT, and all of them. There's a breathtaking pace on which technology is evolving, but your security sort of knowledge and, you know, the controls are missing in that way, right? So those are typically the root causes, I would say. So what's the magic pill I have, right? So my magic pill is nothing but my secure SDLC, right? So let's try to understand, you know, I know people talk about secure SDLC and, you know, most of the versions are pretty good, but let's try to understand in more detail, you know, what sort of application, you know, the secure SDLCs possibly could be implemented which really meets your requirement, right? So let's start with the security requirements, right? So if you look at it, right, somehow, even in all these different materials, the requirements from a security perspective is never talked about from a requirement phase. They typically show it from a design phase, right? But if you have never even documented your security requirements which you want as part of your system, right, in your SRS documentation, it will never be implemented, right? So let's start with that phase where, apart from your business and compliance requirements, right, you're also capturing your security requirements, right? Let's do that as part of your requirement phase. Once you move to your security design, right, do your threat modeling. I think so all that has been covered, so I don't need to talk about it. You create your project plan and you also update your security requirement because you'll have a better understanding of your application. As you move across these different stages of SDLC, you have a better understanding of your application and you get a better chance to update your threat model. It has to be a continuous update versus for your threat model which should go on. When a developer start coding, right, you need to have your coding guidelines, you need to have your SAC, they call it as SAC, your code analyzer tool which keeps on running and they discover the vulnerabilities there, right? And someone should be doing the security code review, right? When you move to testing, do a DAST, which is the dynamic application security testing, and also, if you can do a penetration testing, nothing works like that, right? Don't wait for the integration testing to be done, right? Once you move to the integration phase, right? You do your penetration testing, you update your threat model, there's something ASVS, this is something, if you have to carry one message from this entire stuff, I will talk about this, right? Is this particular part of ASVS, which is from OAPs. So, it's a pretty well-known application security verification standard model. I'll talk about it. And once you get to the final release phase, you have your metrics there, you finally have this sort of penetration testing done. I think so that one was covered in the morning as well, right? And then it's a continuous evolution process, right? So here's the thing, right? Take a step back. In a real world, right? There are two key players who are involved in this particular SDLC, right? Let's take the coding. How many of the people here are developers? And the QA? I wish at least one. Okay. So a quick question to developers, right? So isn't this something you keep on hearing, right? Oh, we need to have a code secure, This is something probably use the OAP's coding guidelines, security coding guidelines and all that, right? And you are given, or let's say a security test scanning has been done and you are given a report which has around 2,000 vulnerabilities and you are supposed to fix sort of level 1 vulnerabilities. Does that happen? Right? So what are the pains you feel that, which you face in real life scenario? What are the things if you think if those were there, it will be helpful for you?
First generic thing what we see is like that architecture is not predefined for us.
Okay.
We'll have to add a patch to make it like, okay, this part can be secure. Something like that we'll be introducing and it will be like, okay, patch here, a patch there.
Sure.
That is how it goes.
Sure. What else?
Some developer told me that why didn't this has been told earlier?
Wonderful point. Wonderful point.
This is-
Absolutely. I love that.
And why it is coming to, I could have done it in 10 minutes at that time.
Exactly. Correct. What else? But there's a very important point which was brought up, and this is where I would say your ASVS, right? It is from OAPs, Application Security Verification Standard, right? This is your gold mine. This is something you should use across your SDLC cycle. What it is, right? So here's the thing, right? What if I give you a solution? Using this, I give you a solution where your developers, even before they develop an application, right, they know what level of maturity they are targeting. Yeah. To a CISO, what's if I come and tell you that, I give you a sort of verification standard where you will be able to tell to your management how secure is your application. Isn't that the question you face, that you just don't know how secure is the application, what level you are, right? This will help you there. For a developer, even before you start your development, it has its own set of verification requirement, right? So your CISO or anyone on the top panel will say, we are targeting level 2 or we are targeting level 3, right? So you'll have a clear benchmark in terms of what all things you need to address to ensure that you have to be at that level. To that point that developers will not feel let out that, I was supposed to do that, but I have no clue, right? Because there's no benchmark. I hope there was someone on the testing side, but a tester, right? Typically a tester, what issues is facing, Go ahead and do a security testing. What security testing? There's so much of things, from a security testing perspective I need to do, right? I mean, what I'm saying is there's no target to it, the developers does not have it, correct? There's no defined level I'm targeting, right? Testers don't have it, right? So they are sort of try it out in ad hoc manner. I will try to do a typical injection attack, try out some ways and all that. But what if you have a verification standard, which even before development is done, right? Your testing team, when they write the test cases, right? They're able to match to that level and write all those test cases. So it's very clearly documented, right? This is something which will help you to do that. It has 19 verification controls, right? Just like your ISO 270001, right? Like your control objective and the detailed requirement which are there for each of the levels. You have so it involves around authentication, authorization, access control, session management, encryption, cryptography, mobile, just name it, it just covers that. So not just, it's much beyond just being able to address your web top 10, but it really makes you comprehensive in terms of you have a target, right? So maybe you start today from level 1. There's nothing to be ashamed, right? Most of the companies, I would say 90% of the companies would be at level 1, even the best of the ones. But at least in the next 1 year, as a CISO, right, or someone in the leadership can target, okay, we'll target level 2. And this is something I can take to the board and have a tangible output coming out of it, right? This will be your metrics. Third, it can be a point wherever you buy any security product, right? Use this to ask your cloud provider or anyone, right? Does this, I am at level 2, does your application meet all these requirements? So it serves as a document even for that, as a procurement document, right? So take this and use it across these layers, right? So when you say level 2, right? When you're documenting your security requirement, all you need to do is copy paste it from there and paste it in your SRS document, correct? When your threat modeling is getting done, right? Ensure that your risk and all that is aligned to those particular levels, correct? The third one, coding. My developer has it in front of me, right? And give them, one thing is, especially for CISOs, sir, I would say that, give them this reusable libraries like a SAPI framework, again for MOAPs. Developers may not know, but what it does, it gives you that reusable libraries, which you can sort of, import it in your, as a jar file, and make those function calls, and you can fix many of the vulnerabilities. You don't need to do the whitelisting and all those things.
I want to ask a question there.
Sure.
Is it, any licensing issue is there doing that? That is what I was not very sure.
Sure.
I know about these libraries.
Sure.
And this VS is a very...
ASVS, yes.
I didn't know about it, but I will definitely like to implement
It's
it.
completely open source. There's no licensed stuff.
Even in the library?
Nothing. You just need to remember. See, what I'm trying to say is even the ASVS, right? Remember my important point which I made? Customize it as per your requirement. So again, it will be generic, right? Because it's everyone to the world. But include things which you think from your end. Let's say you are handling a credit card, right? Or you're handling something much more critical at a transaction level. You cannot have any issues there, right? So include all those requirements as ASVS. ASVS encourages you to do that. Right? So it's completely open. What I've said, because I've worked as developer, right, I know the pain points. You need those libraries to be successful, right? Start using that. You don't need to spend late nights to sort of figure out, okay, which whitelisting do I do? How do I prevent SQL injection? How do I prevent cross-site? Every library of those functions are there. Just use it once. First time it will take time, but your life will become easier, right? And becomes a common way to fix it, right? So this is. So when you get to the final of this one, right, all you need to do is get someone who can do assessment. Okay, we targeted level 2. This is what it is. Let's do a quick check. It's there, right? Doesn't it become more accountable, more focused, right? And it makes you excited about this whole process. Then, I just don't know how secure is my application, right? So this is really a more magical pill than in the complete secure SDLC process, right? So explore that when you go back.
One more question.
Sure.
Nowadays, this waterfall model doesn't happen. It's more agile.
Sure.
And same kind of framework.
Sure.
In that, any changes or is the same?
No, absolutely. It's the same thing, right? It doesn't really change much. So it has everything, it has for something for a top management, it has something for a CISO, for a developer, for a tester, it has something to refer to. And the good thing, typically in a management world, they would want to hear things like maturity model. So I'm at level 2 in maturity model, I'm targeting level 3 in 2 years. That makes it, that will get you money, right? So that would help. See, this is a quick summary of what all details I talked about, right? So quick thing, when you start from requirement phase, what are the things which you need to do before you start? What are the things which should come, out of it? What are the tools which you should be using, right? And when you exit, what are the documents you should have? Same thing for design. I think so we have already talked about it, just it in a more detail. So if you look at it, right, at every stage I'm saying, you should use ASVS, right? That becomes your binding point. Again, during implementation phase, use all these libraries or the ASVS, the static code analyzer, and then when you release, use penetration testing and the DSC library. So you should ask me one question. Secure SDLC is something which is not invented by me. It is not my brainchild. It's known to everyone, right? So why am I calling it as a magical pill? Did I missold it? I don't think so. And the reason why it is a magical pill yet, because of this. This is the data you cannot dispute. This is from OAP's top 10, right? Look at what has changed from 2010 to 2013. Literally nothing, just except for a couple of entries. Look at the top 4, 5, right? They still remain the same. Most of the entries are still remain the same. And if you look at the fixes for that, they are pretty straightforward. But why it has not changed? Same thing. Developers just don't know about it, first thing. Even if they know, they don't know how to go about fixing that, right? Third thing, even if they want to fix it, they are under so much pressure on the functionality perspective. They need those libraries, they need those help from the, from the team to help those, fixing that. That would help to ensure that this changes. But till then, it is a magical pill. People, even though they talk about it, they just don't implement that. And that's why I call it as a magical pill. Even though secure SDLC is known to everyone. It is. Right? So quick thing on my recommendations, right? First thing, set up security culture. This has been heard, but this has to come from the top. And see, this is from a CXO perspective, it's so important, is the way they behave, even at, let's say, when they're getting into a company or, campus, right? The way they behave with a security guy, if they are getting stopped for something, if they don't show respect, the same thing will be followed by the rest of the company. It's as simple as that. So, that seriousness needs to be there for security throughout, right? And it is built over a period. It cannot happen that you become a CISO or a CEO and you say that, now we'll follow the security culture. It doesn't work like that. It has to be built over a period of time. Go back and tell your, whatever, potentially your top management, just like, you value so much of integrity, right? Let's treat security in the same way. So just as integrity is not, cannot be compromised, your security cannot be compromised, right? Go that and it really will set your security culture, right? Second, I think so I discussed this earlier, right? It's not, security is not an implied phenomenon. It is an explicit one, which means is trust, but verify. It is more to do if even if you have your in-house team which develops that, right? Still verified. If you are giving it to outsource, don't think that they would have application security in place. Verified, put that and document your requirement. You get what you document, right? This I've seen so many places the failure happening because there's an implicit requirement, people don't want to pay for that. I've seen these cases where we want to write in the proposal that, if you want to have security, review and, this one, it will take, let's say, 10% more. I mean, customers will come back and say, why didn't you? I thought you were such a fantastic organization that security is in your blood. I mean, it doesn't work like that. I guess the more the customers really get to that point, understand that, it will be better for them. But unfortunately, most of the places it's still not the case, right? And the third thing is, the world is not enough. You will still be hacked, so be ready for that. There's so many places where you keep on hearing this, I got breached, and you hear this standard statement, we take the security of, the customers very seriously.